There's an island at the far end of the world where trees are giants that can tower up to 100 meters tall. Tasmania.
Two Towers is one of the largest, if not the largest, eucalypts on the planet, which also makes it the largest flowering plant alive. It's fought many battles over its 500-year lifespan, and so we're lucky to still have it alive. Every time I see it, I still feel a little bit emotional to think that something so magnificent is still in our...
These gigantic trees native to Tasmania are famous throughout the world. They're called Eucalyptus regnans. This forest is a remnant of the most ancient geological eras in the history of the Earth. Once upon a time, the forest covered the entire island. Wedged between Australia and the Antarctic, Tasmania was uninhabited for ages. Its giant trees reigned supreme over the land. But today, 500,000 people live here. To measure the impact humans are having on the forest, botanist Brett Mifsud heads up into the Eucalyptus regnans trees.
Well, it's an awful shame because so much of the forest was logged in this area. So much of it is gone, and there are so few trees like this left alive for us to experience and enjoy and climb and research.
Like Brett Mifsud, researchers and nature lovers have given themselves the mission of recovering the natural heritage that currently suffers from too great a human impact. But they're butting heads with the country's culture, for Tasmanians are lumberjacks, and the gigantic trunks of the old eucalyptus make good logging. In just 25 years, they can grow up to 50 meters tall. The 19th century colonists knew what they were doing. Tasmania was built on the treasures of its forest. But the lumberjacks' axes were replaced by the machinery of the booming industry, and the majestic Eucalyptus regnans by even more productive varieties. As a result, after 2 centuries, 1/3 of Tasmania's original forest has disappeared. Destruction that has divided the entire country. On the one side, militant ecologists, guardians of the vulnerable forest. On the other, loggers and foresters, proud of their traditions and the driving force of the island's economy. Their clashes are so violent that the press has dubbed them the Forest War. The conflict has been raging for over 30 years. The stakes are huge, saving Tasmania's forest and its last remaining giants. Among these activists, Vika Bailey is the spokesman for the Wilderness Society, the most powerful tree protection movement in Tasmania. The Eucalyptus regnans has become the standard-bearer of this battle, which first began on political terrain. The Forest War is behind the creation of the world's first Green Party.
For me personally, it was incredibly important to fight for these trees because of what they represent. And to see them torn down, burnt, turned into paper products demonstrates an absolute disregard and disrespect for nature and the planet itself.
Felling the giants also ruins the magic of a forest that harbors a plethora of secrets. Beneath their canopy lies a realm that resembles a fairyland. The scenery is so enchanting that the trees and paths here bear names borrowed from the fictional universe of The Lord of the Rings. This eucalyptus is called Gandalf's staff, in honor of the venerable wizard. But the elders of the forest do more than just inspire amblers. They play a major role in the ecosystem by creating shade for the understory and ensuring the regeneration of the forest. Tasmania is home to a temperate rainforest, a natural environment that seems surprising right next door to arid, drought-prone Australia. The eucalyptus developed a remarkable strategy in order to populate the lush island. It created close to 800 subspecies specifically adapted to damp climes. To understand this little-known ecosystem, botanist Jessie Boutel searches for clues to how it works.
$36.5. So half is 74.4, so the full diameter is 148.8 centimetres. I'd say the decomposition is 2, category 2, and there is presence of a fire scar. The direction is 134 degrees. The eucalypts, when they grow really tall, they have, in most cases, a really big canopy. And because of this canopy, it tends to shade everything else underneath it. So you get a system that has to be shade tolerant, because if it's not shade tolerant, then you won't have sun, so it can't live. So most shade tolerant tree species or understory species tend to be the ones that you see around me. And they generally live underneath these eucalypt trees because they cannot live anywhere else, unless you get a canopy gap, in which case you tend to get more eucalyptus trees growing in these gaps. So eucalypts are really, really important for sort of constructing this type of ecosystem, which is a rainforest.
Beneath the canopy, huge fern trees thrive. Along with the eucalyptus, they're the soul of the forest. At these giants' feet lies a hidden world of unsuspected treasures.
It's hard to believe when the trees are so spectacular and the ferns all look so amazing. And actually, the greatest source of biodiversity and the greatest number of species lies in these very small mosses.
Tasmania's temperate rainforest is still relatively unknown. How many species grow in the shade of these giant trees? This miniature exploration is the project biologist Scott McAdam has taken on. So far, he's identified hundreds of varieties of moss and microscopic ferns.
This species is Herpesia varia, which is a lycophyte. The ancestors of the lycophytes once grew into 30-metre tall trees that dominated forests at the equator in the tropics 400 million years ago. These ferns on the trunk of this tree fern are unique in that their leaves are only 1 cell thick and they're very sensitive to the amount of water in the environment. They can desiccate completely and dry out, and then when it rains, they can rehydrate. And we don't know much about how the physiology behind how these plants are able to desiccate and rehydrate and survive on the trunks of these tree ferns. My passion in science is evolution. This is part of a study that we are conducting to investigate the evolution of how land plants use water and how this might have changed through evolutionary time. Because if we know those things, then we can better predict how these plants will respond into the future.
These tiny ferns seem to have emerged from a time machine. They grew here even before there were dinosaurs. The knowledge they contain speaks of the very origins of the Earth.
The ferns that we find in these forests are like a portal to the past. Coming into these forests is like walking into prehistoric forests. Very similar to forests in South America or the fossil forests that we see in the fossil record from Antarctica when it was ice-free 40 million years or more ago.
400 million years ago, these land masses, which today lie several thousand kilometers apart, formed one single supercontinent, Gondwana. This was when the mosses and ferns we find here first appeared. 180 million years ago, Gondwana broke up and Tasmania was separated from the other continental blocks. Tasmania's temperate rainforest is one of the last remnants of this era. Scientific research has helped us understand how valuable this amazing heritage is and led to a turning point in the forest war.
But despite the opportunity, the Wilderness Society...
In 2011, after decades of conflict, ecologists and loggers came together to sign a peace treaty, and UNESCO ratified their truce.
...that helped bring together loggers and greenies.
In 2013, after decades of advocacy, protest, scientific research and campaigning, the UNESCO's World Heritage Committee accepted a nomination to have these areas added to the Tasmanian Wilderness World Heritage Area. And without the community standing up and saying no, without people advocating, and then ultimately without UNESCO and its World Heritage Committee saying this is an area of global significance, places like this would continue to be cut down in Tasmania.
Since the peace deal, nearly half of the land has been safeguarded by UNESCO. Within these areas, the original forest and its giants have been preserved.